Did you ever get caught? No, never. Why? They say. I'm a deadly innocent guy. You ever get caught? Did you ever get caught? Did you ever get caught? No, never, never. Why? I'm a deadly innocent guy.
Disclaimer. In this story, we will be discussing the murder and sexual assault of multiple women and some teenage girls. This chapter may be triggering for some listeners. This will be the only warning. Please do not listen if you're sensitive to this topic.
What is up, everyone?
Hey.
Welcome back to another chapter of True Crime Story. I've been waiting to record this story for weeks. I remember years and years ago, I watched the movie based off of these crimes named Karla. Well, I'm sure there's more than one movie, but this one specifically was starring Laura Prepon, I think is how you pronounce it. That's so 70s show. And Misha Collins. And Misha Collins was maybe less known back then, but now he's famous for his role in like Supernatural and stuff, which is why I can't watch that show, honestly, because when I see his face, even though he's like filled out a little bit more, I just link him to Paul Bernardo, unfortunately. But you know what? Probably due to seeing the movie when I was too young, but still. This story is about Canada's Ken and Babie Killers, Paul Bernardo and Karla Hamolka. The two looked like the picture-perfect couple, both good-looking, well-educated, and well-employed. Notice how I used the word picture before perfect, as things were ugly and dirty behind their facade.
No kidding.
No kidding. So Paul's crimes also led to him having other names such as the Scarborough Rapist and the Schoolgirl Killer. So he was kind of multiple criminals that they thought that they were hunting.
Yeah.
So let's get into their background a little bit. Paul Bernardo was born in Scarborough, Ontario on August 27th, 1964, the third and legally youngest child of Kenneth Walter Bernardo and Marilyn Elizabeth Bernardo. Kenneth often sexually abused Paul's older sister, Deborah, in front of other family members and would eventually be charged with crimes involving voyeurism and pedophilia.
Wow.
Yeah. Marilyn often withdrew from her family due to depression and agoraphobia, eventually moving into the basement, so she was afraid to go outside. Paul presented himself as being a happy and well-adjusted child despite his family's dysfunction. He was an active member of the Boy Scouts. Beneath the charming facade, however, he gradually developed pyromaniac inclinations and dark sexual fantasies, one of which involved creating a virgin farm where he would breed virgin girls to rape.
Classy.
Fucking disgusting. After a fight between his parents in 1981, Paul, aged 16 at the time, was informed by his mother that he was the result of an affair and that Kenneth was not his biological father, which is why above I said legally.
Yes.
Repulsed, Paul began to call his mother slut and whore, and she reciprocated by calling him a bastard from hell. Later, after growing weary of Paul's domineering behavior, his first girlfriend left him for one of his friends. In retaliation, Paul set fire to all of her belongings to which he had access. Wow. So, for some reason, like, I'm sure everything shaped him into who he was, like his dad being that monster and everything, but it really bothered him when he found out that that wasn't even his dad.
And I mean, nature versus nurture. He had to be born with something not quite right for him to be nurtured into the level of monster he was.
For sure. And he obviously is a narcissist.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. In 1982, Paul attended the University of Toronto, Scarborough, so the UTSC, where another notorious Canadian murderer, Russell Williams, was coincidentally 2 academic years behind him.
Which blows my mind because Russell Williams, like, he looks ancient. Oh, I mean, I plan to.
Okay.
But in his interrogation a few years ago, like 10 years ago or whatever it was, he looks like 50s or, you know. older than me anyways. But I still have this picture of Paul Bernardo in my head of this blonde 20-something. And I know he's not, but you know what I'm saying? So it's just bizarre that Paul Bernardo is actually older than Russell Williams. It's just, sorry, weird. I digress. Continue.
No, totally. It's weird. As his day job, Paul worked for Amway, the sales culture of which deeply affected him. He bought the books and tapes of famous motivational, get-rich and famous experts. So honestly, it helped him tweak and perfect his narcissist behavior that carried himself with such grace, if you will. For sure. Paul and his college friends practiced pickup techniques on young women they met in bars and were fairly successful. Paul delighted in humiliating his dates in public and engaging in aggressive anal intercourse in bed. Ugh. His relationships became increasingly violent and unstable, and his partners were threatened with death if they disclosed the abuse. In 1986, Paul was served with restraining orders by 2 women after he made obscene phone calls. That's crazy.
Wow.
In October 1987, Paul met Karla while she was visiting Scarborough to attend a pet store conference. The two shared an immediate attraction as Karla encouraged Paul's sadistic sexual behavior. So, before we get into fully what they did when they met, let's get into Karla Leanne Homolka.
I hate that she's a Taurus.
I wonder what he is. I bet you he's like a Gemini.
He is Libra.
I could see how a male Libra could get there. Mm-hmm. So, Karla was born May 4th, 1970. She had 2 younger sisters, Lori and Tammy. Karla was a bright child and good student that was doted on by her father. But he would also insult her and her mother and sisters during his drunk episodes and took refuge in the basement when he got in arguments with them. When the Homolka's marriage faltered and he took on a mistress, however, the wife's response was to propose her a threesome and keep on as normal. So why don't you just bring her in and we'll swing a couple times and then you could just stay married to me, please?
Interesting.
Because it speaks to how these two
were raised.
Yeah. It's crazy. Usually I don't go this far into backgrounds for people, but it is so important for this case. So, Paul was already a piece of shit before even leaving his mother's house, obviously. That's pretty safe to say. We're going to continue off after he left home, before he met Karla. Let's get into his crimes that he was convicted of. On May 4th, 1987, around 1 a.m., a 21-year-old woman was attacked outside of her parents' house just minutes after getting off the bus. She was attacked and raped. Imagine that, right outside your parents' house. Ugh! And he did that often. He was sadistic.
And how coincidental is it that this first crime was on Karla's 17th birthday? I'd like to point that out, May 4th.
Oh, true.
Gross.
The fuck. Wow. Just 10 days later, on May 14th, Paul raped a 19-year-old girl who was in her parents' backyard. A few weeks later, he attempted to rape a young woman. He beat her, but she fought back, causing him to flee. On September 29th, Paul attempted to rape a 15-year-old girl. He broke into the home and snuck into the girl's bedroom and jumped on her back. He put his hand over her mouth and threatened her with a knife. He bruised the side of her face and bit her ear. Paul fled when the girl's mother entered the room and screamed. Side fact for this crime is that Anthony Hainmeyer was wrongfully convicted of the assault in 1989 and served a 16-month prison sentence, but was exonerated after Paul admitted to the crime in 2006. So again, just kind of showing how even police get it wrong sometimes, bro.
Oh, for sure.
On October 17th, 1987, Paul met Karla in a hotel's restaurant. So they met, she was in Scarborough for that pet store thing. He was 23 at the time and Karla was only 17. They were instantly attracted to one another and ended up having sex almost immediately after meeting in front of their 2 friends. Their friends were watching while they just banged. What the fuck?
And I don't know, man. I feel like I've read reports that they were actually having very rough sex in the hotel room with their friends.
Watching and being like, what the fuck?
Room. Yeah.
Totally. No, that's what I've seen too. And that's why they say that Karla was okay with his deviant sexual behavior.
Absolutely, she was.
But so, after this, there seemed to be a pause in attacks. But during this time, Paul started to visit Karla twice a week. He slowly came to control how Karla dressed, ate, and acted. He would call her names like fat and ugly. And unlike his previous relationships, Karla submitted to the abuse and even encouraged Paul's deviant sexual behavior. When Paul found out that Karla was not a virgin before he slept with her, he was extremely annoyed. On December 16th, he started tormenting once again when he raped a 15-year-old girl. The next day, Toronto Police Service issued a warning to women in the Scarborough area about traveling alone at night. Only a few days later, on December 23rd, right before Christmas, Paul raped a 17-year-old girl while threatening her with a knife. This is when he started to be called the Scarborough Rapist. Right before Christmas, like he's a monster.
He is, and for them to take that long, in my opinion, to connect them all, I mean,
they dragged their feet.
It's disgusting.
In 1988, Karla's friend discovered, quote, the list. Karla writes about having a healthy diet, exercising regularly, and having good hygiene. She also writes in regards to Paul and their relationship, and this is a quote, never let anyone know our relationship is anything but perfect. Don't talk back to Paul. Be a perfect girlfriend for Paul. If Paul asks for a drink, bring him one quickly and happily. Remember you're stupid. Remember you're ugly. Remember you're fat. I don't know why I tell you these things because you never change. Now, there are theories that he actually wrote that and gave it to her to carry around with her.
Probably dictated to her.
Yeah, that's what I think too. Yeah. Like made her write it.
Yeah.
Which... Jesus Christ.
And that's on her if she stayed.
I'm so disconnected from, I get it, like abuse, it's so hard to leave, but like she had places to go. She had parents who were like, come stay with me, and I don't know. I would have left him so fucking quick. Anyway. So on April 18th, 1988, Paul rapes and attacks a 17-year-old girl who had just gotten off of her bus. The attack lasted 45 minutes.
That's crazy.
Right? Like, how the fuck? May 25th, 1988, Paul was nearly caught by a uniformed police officer staking out a bus shelter. Although officers noticed him hiding under a tree and pursued him on foot, Paul escaped.
Wow. I didn't know about that.
Just pathetic. Just 5 days later, May 30th, Paul attacks an 18-year-old woman in Mississauga, Ontario, about 40 kilometers southwest of Scarborough. The police must have scared him enough for him to change his MO slightly. So he left Scarborough a little bit and he ventured out to find his next victim. October 4th, he attempts to rape an unknown girl, but she fought him off and... sadly, she was actually stabbed in her thigh and butt and needed 12 stitches. So he really tried to force her into submission, but she fought the entire time, no matter what kind of pain he forced on her. Reportedly in November, Paul meets a girl named Anna and begins dating her while he is in Toronto, and also continues to see Karla. Paul also begins to become attracted to Karla's younger sister, Tammy. He demands that Tammy not have sex with any guy, which Karla works to maintain, we believe. So, November 16th, Paul again rapes a girl in the backyard of the victim's parents. She was 18 years old at the time. So, that's the second time that he was able to do that in the parents of the victims. November 17th, 1988, police formed a task force to capture the Scarborough Rapist. Because now it's becoming a problem.
Yeah.
Obviously. On December 27th, Paul attempts to attack yet another girl, but luckily a neighbor chases him off. On June 20th, 1989, Paul attempts to attack a young woman, but she fights back and Paul flees. Paul is left with scratches to his face after this one.
Good.
On August 15th, he rapes a 22-year-old woman. November 21st, Paul rapes a 15-year-old while she was in a bus shelter. Karla was aware of what Paul was doing at this time, and there was allegations from one victim that Karla was present when she was attacked, recording it on camera. But these allegations were ignored by the police. So, on December 22nd, Paul rapes a 19-year-old woman. And then we are going on to May 26th, 1990. Paul rapes a 19-year-old woman again. The victim's vivid recollection of her attacker enabled police to create a computer composite portrait, which was released 2 days later by police and publicized in Toronto and surrounding areas.
Which I gotta say, it was pretty good. Like, it was pretty accurate.
Yeah, I honestly think that during her attack, she was like, fine, do whatever you want, but I'm studying your face, bitch. Like, This caused a massive number of tips. At the time, Paul had quit his job and got his money by smuggling cigarettes across the U.S.-Canadian border. Friends and previous girlfriends of Paul saw the released sketch and tried to contact the police, but the officers were overwhelmed by other tips and were unable to follow up on them. In November, 2 detectives visited Paul and took blood, saliva, and hair samples from him, but they wouldn't be tested for 2 years.
Yeah, I know. Like,
2 years.
It was ridiculous.
So, by 1990, Paul spent long periods of time with Karla's family, who liked him and were unaware of his criminal activities. Although he was engaged to Karla, he had become obsessed with her younger sister Tammy, peering into her window and entering her room to masturbate while she slept. Karla helped Paul by breaking the windows in her sister's room, allowing him access, making sure that they couldn't be locked. And according to Paul's testimony at trial, Karla laced spaghetti sauce with crushed Valium she had stolen from her employer at an animal clinic. She served it to her sister, who soon lost consciousness. Paul then raped Tammy while Karla watched. After 1 minute, Tammy regained consciousness. 6 months before their 1991 wedding, Karla stole the anesthetic agent halothane from the clinic. On December 23rd, 1990, Karla and Paul administered sleeping pills to 15-year-old Tammy in a rum and eggnog cocktail. When Tammy lost consciousness, Karla and Paul undressed her, and Karla applied a halothane-soaked cloth to her sister's nose and mouth. Karla wanted to give Tammy's virginity to Paul for Christmas, because according to Karla, Paul was disappointed that he was not Karla's first sex partner. So I'm guessing when they drugged Tammy the first time, he tried to rape her.
I had heard, like, I had always thought it was an oral rape.
That would make sense. Yeah. Because it was only a minute and she woke up anyway. And yeah, we know for sure that Karla wanted to gift Tammy's virginity to Paul at Christmas.
Yeah.
So yeah, with Tammy's parents sleeping upstairs, the couple videotaped themselves raping Tammy in the basement. Tammy began to vomit. They tried to revive her and called 911 after hiding evidence and dressing Tammy and moving her into her bedroom. A few hours later, Tammy was pronounced dead at St. Catherine's General Hospital without regaining consciousness. So, Tammy's sister allowed her to get raped and murdered.
By her boyfriend. Stupid bitch.
Yeah. Karla ended up admitting to this in a letter to her parents only after she struck a deal to, not be put away forever. But at the time, despite being observed vacuuming and washing laundry in the middle of the night, and despite a chemical burn on Tammy's face, the regional municipality of Niagara coroner and Karla's family accepted the couple's version of events. The official cause of Tammy's death was ruled accidental, the result of choking on vomit after consumption of alcohol. So, I don't know.
Terrible.
To me, it's stupid. After Tammy's death, Paul and Karla videotaped themselves engaging in sexual intercourse, with Karla wearing Tammy's clothing and pretending to be her. They moved out of the Hamolka house to a rented bungalow in Port Dalhousie to allow Karla's parents to grieve. They were like, let us get out of your way. We just want to have sex. We don't really care. Horrible.
Yep.
I'm going to play a clip of their home videos, which when watching the video, you can see his interest in Tammy. He asks her what she's drinking at the beginning too, which is why I will play the sound clip. But if you're interested in watching the long lost videotapes, you can do so on YouTube.
All right. Wait, what are you drinking there?
Ice.
Ice? Ice, baby, to go?
No.
Okay, let's see what's up. We have the television, and we have Karla drinking, and Lori, which is absolutely not drinking.
Yeah, you look at it.
Yeah, they're the best ones.
You like those? They're good, eh?
Everybody don't eat that.
So yeah, it's gross. And it's gross to hear it and hear him talking to her normal, even though they were such bad people. Early in the morning of June 15th, 1991, while detouring through Burlington to steal license plates, Paul came across 14-year-old Leslie Mahaffey. Leslie had been locked out of her house for missed curfew after attending a friend's wake. Paul left his car and approached Leslie, saying that he wanted to break into a neighbor's house. Unfazed, she asked if he had any cigarettes, and Paul led her to his car, blindfolded her, forced her into the car, and then drove her to Port Dalhousie and informed Karla that they had a victim. So, imagine, I just want to take a second to say, imagine thinking you're parenting your kid by being like, I told you, door shuts at this time.
Yeah.
And having to live with that, ooh.
Oh, yeah. Her mom is, to this day, destroyed.
That's so sad.
It is.
Paul and Karla videotaped themselves torturing and sexually abusing Leslie while they listened to pop music. At one point, Paul said, "You're doing a good job, Leslie, a damned good job." And then he added, "The next 2 hours are going to determine what I do to you. Right now, you're scoring perfect." On another segment of tape played at Paul's trial, the assault escalated. Leslie cried out in pain and begged Paul to stop. In the Crown description of the scene, he was sodomizing her while her hands were bound with twine. Leslie later told Paul that her blindfold seemed to be slipping, which signaled the possibility that she could identify her attackers if she lived. The following day, Paul claimed Karla fed her a lethal dose of halcyon, but Karla claimed that Paul strangled her. They put Leslie's body in their basement the day before Karla's family had dinner at the house.
Wasn't that Easter dinner or something?
Probably. Yeah, I'm
so.
not too sure, but following the dinner party, Paul and Karla decided to dismember Leslie's body and encase each part of her remains in cement. Paul bought a dozen bags of cement at a hardware store the following day, and he kept the receipts, which were damaging at his trial.
An idiot.
An idiot. After Paul cut apart the body using his grandfather's circular saw, the couple made a number of trips to dump the cement blocks in Lake Gibson, 18 kilometers south of Port Dalhousie. At least one of the blocks weighed 200 pounds and was beyond their ability to sink. It lay near the shore where it was found on June 29th, 1991, coincidentally on Paul and Karla's wedding day. If that's not karma, I don't know what is.
It was so disgusting. To look at their wedding pictures in this fairy tale wedding.
Yeah.
And
their pretend.
Their total facade. And then just down the road, this poor little girl's remains are being found.
Literally. Leslie's orthodontic appliance was instrumental in identifying her, obviously, because they butchered her. Horrible. Several days before Karla's release from prison in July 2005, Paul was interviewed by police and his lawyer, Tony Bryant. According to Bryant, Paul stated that he had always intended to free the girls he and Karla had kidnapped. However, when Leslie's blindfold fell off, Karla was concerned that Leslie would identify Paul and report the couple to the police. Paul claimed that Karla planned to murder Leslie by injecting an air bubble into her bloodstream, triggering an air embolism. So, I just thought that was important to touch on, just because, like, there is a lot of finger pointing, and I mean, there is a lot of finger pointing, and having Karla be released from prison, like, right now, she's just chilling. She's living her everyday life.
With kids.
Fucking
loving life somewhere in fucking Quebec.
It's just crazy to me. It's absolutely nuts.
Good news, though. Within the last few years, she was kicked out of the PTA, the Parent-Teacher Association.
I've seen people getting interviewed. Like, did you know that Karla Homolka lives here and goes by this name? Like, a news outlet just totally outing her to a bunch of people, and they were like, what?
I mean, she's lucky that
you
she's
can
still,
see that
there
online.
was a death pool on her
for sure.
Years, so she's lucky, and she's just shut up
forever.
Just
she
go
should
hide
be in
in
jail.
your basement.
Horrible.
Cruel animal cruelty to children, really, for her to even procreate.
Yeah, why would she think that's ever a good idea?
That?
Why do you think that you have the right to do that?
That's right. And your kids, what they're going to go through. Like, they didn't, well, whatever.
And what man?
The prisoner that she was buddy with.
Ugh, gross. Whatever.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Bitch.
During the after-school hours of April 16th, 1992, Paul and Karla drove through St. Catharines to look for potential victims. Although students were still going home, the streets were generally empty. As they passed Holy Cross Secondary School, the couple spotted 15-year-old Kristen French walking home. After they pulled into the parking lot of nearby Grace Lutheran Church, Karla got out of the car carrying a map, pretending to need assistance. Again, this alone should be enough to lock her away for forever.
Yeah, but she didn't admit to any of this shit till after the deal was done.
I know, fucking bitch.
But nowadays, they find out she lied about this much stuff. There is no deal.
Yeah.
Should have been that way back then.
Deadass. When Kristen looked at the map, Paul attacked from behind and forced her into the front seat of the car at knife point. From the back seat, Karla subdued Kristen by pulling her hair. After Kristen failed to arrive home, her parents became convinced that she was in trouble and notified police. Within 24 hours, the Niagara Regional Police Service assembled a team, searched Kristen's after-school route, and found several witnesses who had seen the abduction from different locations. Kristen's shoe, recovered from the parking lot, showed the seriousness of the abduction. Over the Easter weekend, Paul and Karla videotaped themselves torturing, raping, and sodomizing Kristen, forcing her to drink large amounts of alcohol and submit to Paul. At his trial, Crown Prosecutor Ray Houlihan said that Paul always intended to kill Kristen because she was never blindfolded and could identify her captors. The following day, Paul and Karla murdered Kristen before going to the... Paul and Karla murdered Kristen before going to the Hamolkas for Easter dinner.
There's the Easter dinner.
So you just got the murders mixed up. Yeah. Karla testified at her trial that Paul strangled Kristen for 7 minutes while she watched. Paul claimed that Karla beat Kristen with a rubber mallet because she tried to escape. And Kristen was strangled with a noose around her neck, which was secured to a hope chest. Karla then went to fix her hair. That's what, it's kind of like a he said, she said. Like, well, she did this. No, he did that. Kristen's nude body was found on April 30th, 1992 in a ditch in Burlington, about 45 minutes from St. Catharines and a short distance from the cemetery where Leslie is buried. She had been washed and her hair was cut off. Although it was thought that the hair was removed as a trophy, Karla testified that it was cut to make identification harder for police. Again, what a great citizen.
She's a terrible person. Like, I hate her.
Horrible person. And yeah, there's like new interviews and stuff with Paul going on because, spoiler alert, he was just moved from a maximum security prison to a medium security, which everybody's pissed about. But I just want to say that during his like newer interrogations, he is still caught on the fact that Karla is not being held responsible, and it almost feels like it's life mission. Like he's in prison and
he's obsessed with getting her to serve time.
Yeah, it's killing him inside. And it's because he was an abuser for sure. Like he wants her to. So that's the only thing that makes me think, like, honestly, cool that she's out, because she's living. There's no way she's living a good life. There's no way that she's finding people to be friends with and shit. But it is eating Paul alive in prison.
Yeah.
So much that it's all he can talk about.
Yeah. True enough, but he's still a violent offender and shouldn't be in medium security.
No. I would be totally for Karla being in prison for her entire life, and then they just tell Paul, like, that she's doing so good and that she's living in Quebec. Like, that would be optimal, honestly. Yeah. But 26 months after Paul submitted a DNA sample, Toronto police were informed that it matched that of the Scarborough Rapist and immediately placed him under 24-hour surveillance. Metro Toronto Sexual Assault Squad investigators interviewed Karla on February 9th, 1993. Despite hearing their suspicions about Paul, she focused on his abuse of her. Later that night, Karla told her aunt and uncle that Paul was the Scarborough Rapist, that she and Paul were involved in the rape and murder of Leslie and Kristen, and that the rapes were recorded on videotape. Yep. The NRP subsequently reopened its investigation of Tammy Hamolka's death. 2 days later, Karla met with Niagara Falls lawyer George Walker, who sought legal immunity from Crown Prosecutor Houlihan in exchange for her cooperation. So February 14th, 1993, Walker met with Crown Criminal Law Office Director Murray Siegel, and after Walker told Siegel about the videotapes, Siegel advised him that due to Karla's involvement in the crimes, full immunity was not a possibility. Which is fair, but she got too much as it is.
She definitely downplayed what her involvement was.
For sure. But she should have to sign, like, what she said is, like, she generally true. And if it's not true, then
the deal should have been revoked.
No, yeah. On February 17th, detectives arrested Paul on several charges and obtained a search warrant. Because his link to the murders was weak, the warrant was limited, so no evidence which was not expected and documented in the warrant could be removed from his property. So they couldn't take anything and everything they wanted, and all videotapes found by police had to be viewed in the house. Damage had to be kept to a minimum, and police could not tear down walls, looking for tapes and stuff. Like, they couldn't turn the house over. The search of the house, including updated warrants, lasted 71 days, and the only tape found by police had a brief segment of Karla performing oral sex on Jane Doe. During a call from jail, Paul told his lawyer, Ken Murray, that the rape videos were hidden in a ceiling light fixture in the upstairs bathroom. Murray found the tapes and hid them from investigators. After Murray resigned as Paul's lawyer, his new attorney, John Rosen, turned the tapes over to police. On May 5th, Walker was informed that the government was offering Karla a plea bargain of 12 years imprisonment, which she had 1 week to accept. If she declined, the government would charge her with 2 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of second-degree murder, and other crimes as well. Walker accepted the offer, and Karla later agreed to it. On May 14th, Karla's plea bargain was finalized, and she began giving statements to police investigators. She told police that Paul boasted that he had raped as many as 30 women, twice as many as the police suspected. I'm going to play a clip here that you'll need to concentrate to hear because it is old, but if you need to, you can also go to the link in our show notes and watch the video with subtitles.
Okay, the reason why he started bringing me home was because he wasn't satisfied with just like raping them and leaving. He wanted to have it over and over and over again. That's why his ultimate fantasy was to have like sex slaves. Heat, constant beatings, was hell. He wanted to abduct somebody, but there was nobody.
And when you came back, did you have lots of photographs to show people?
Mm-hmm.
In addition to the 3 confirmed murders that Paul and Karla committed, suspicions remain about other possible victims or intended victims. So I thought it'd be interesting to go through those. The first one being from Derek Finkel's 1997 book, No Claim to Mercy. So, in the book, he presented evidence tying Paul to the presumed murder of 22-year-old Elizabeth Bain, who disappeared on June 19th, 1990. Elizabeth had told her mother that she was going to check the tennis schedule at UTSC. 3 days later, her car was found with a large blood stain. Paul matched the description of a man in the Colonel Danforth Park area where Elizabeth was last seen, and later confessed to at least 8 attacks in and around the same park. Elizabeth's boyfriend, Robert Baltovich, was convicted of second-degree murder in her death on March 31st, 1992. During his trial and subsequent imprisonment, Robert and his lawyers repeatedly alleged that Paul was the perpetrator. The Court of Appeal for Ontario set aside Robert's conviction on December 2nd, 2004, and at his retrial on April 22nd, 2008, the Crown told the court that no evidence would be called against him and asked the jury to find him not guilty of second-degree murder. When questioned about the Bain killing in 2007, Paul said, quote, "The answer to that is no. But the 800-pound gorilla in the room is that it is a life to 25 sentence."
Mm-hmm. Just a pig.
Just a pig. And like that means he did it.
Yeah.
He's like, the answer to that is no, I didn't do that. But just remember that there's also this huge fucking elephant in the room, which is a big sentence.
Yeah.
Horrible. Shortly after Tammy Hamolka's funeral, her parents left town and her sister Lori visited grandparents in Mississauga, leaving the house empty. According to author Stephen Williams, during the weekend of January 12th, 1991, Paul abducted a girl, took her to the house, raped her while Karla watched, and dropped her off on a deserted road near Lake Gibson. Paul and Karla called her January Girl. So...
gross.
That's according to that author, though. So, What's his source? Not sure. Would I believe it? Sure would.
Of course.
At about 5:30 a.m. on April 6, 1991, Paul abducted a 14-year-old girl who was training to be a coxswain for a local rowing team. Sorry if I didn't pronounce that right, but it's for the local rowing team. The girl was distracted by a blonde woman who waved at her from her car, enabling Paul to drag her into the shrubbery near the rowing club. He sexually assaulted her, forced her to remove her clothes, and made her wait 5 minutes, during which he disappeared. Weird, a blonde waved at her.
Strange.
Very. Karla was blonde, did you know that?
Yeah.
On June 7th, 1991, Karla invited a 15-year-old girl she had befriended at a pet shop 2 years earlier, known as Jane Doe, to their home. So, she invited that 15-year-old to their home. After being drugged by Karla, Jane Doe was sexually assaulted by the couple, which was videotaped. In August, Jane Doe was invited back to the couple's residence and was again drugged. Karla called 911 for help after the girl vomited and stopped breathing while being raped. The ambulance was recalled after Paul and Karla resuscitated her.
And I don't know. In Alberta, if you call 911, ambulance, police, whatever's dispatched has to make contact. So they have to show up. So maybe they... I don't know if it's different in Ontario, but...
Or maybe it's changed over.
Maybe. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
To me, 91 wasn't... I get it was, but to me, 1991 wasn't all that long ago.
And there are, like, you see those 911 operators who take it upon themselves to decide, like, sometimes if they're dispatching, which is not okay, but it does happen. On July 28th, 1991, Paul stalked Sydney Kirshen, aged 21, after he saw her while driving home from work. On August 9th, he resumed stalking her. This time, she took evasive action, stopping at her boyfriend's house just prior to his arrival. After spotting Paul, the boyfriend gave chase, came across Paul's gold Nissan, and took note of the license plate. The couple reported the incident to the NRP, which established that the car belonged to Paul. An NRP officer visited Paul's house and saw the car parked in the driveway, but did not pursue the matter nor submitted an official police report.
Shoddy.
Shoddy is like a melody. That's what it sounded like. Sorry. Okay. A newspaper clipping found during the police search of Paul's house described a rape that occurred in Hawaii during the couple's honeymoon there in the summer of 1991. Like, this shit is so crazy.
Wow.
The article and the rape's similarity to Paul's MO and its occurrence during the couple's presence in Hawaii led police to speculate on Paul's involvement.
Duh.
Law enforcement officials in both Canada and the US have stated their belief that Paul was responsible for this rape, but due to extradition issues, this case was never prosecuted. Horrible. On November 30th, 1991, Terry Anderson, a grade 9 student at Lakeport Secondary School, adjacent to Kristen's Catholic school, vanished less than 2 kilometers from the parking lot where Kristen would later be abducted. In April 1992, the NRP said they had no evidence to suggest a link. Anderson's body was ultimately found in the water at Port Dalhousie.
That's a little too suspicious just slough it off.
How do you not have evidence? That's enough evidence, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
The coroner saw no evidence of foul play, despite the difficulties of determining such factors in a body that had been in the water for 6 months. The coroner's ruling that her death was by drowning, probably as a result of drinking beer and taking LSD, was controversial in light of the circumstances of the Leslie and Kristen murders, obviously. On March 29th, 1992, Paul stalked and videotaped sisters Shanna and Carrie Patridge from his car, following them to their parents' house. The sisters incorrectly recorded his license plate number. Shanna reported the incident to the NRP on March 31st, 1992, and was given an incident number should further information develop. On April 18th, 1992, while Kristen was still being held captive, Paul was spotted by Carrie while he had gone out to buy dinner and rent a movie. Despite failing to track him to his house, Carrie got a better description of his license plate and car, which she reported to the NRP. This information, however, was mishandled by police. In 2006, Paul confessed to at least 10 more sexual assaults dating to March 1986, including the 1987 assault of a 15-year-old girl. Another man, who we've already discussed, Anthony, had been convicted of the assault and served a full sentence for it, and that's the one that they ended up overturning for him.
Yep.
The deal made for Karla's evidence, like to get her to talk against her husband, horrified Canadians who saw it like pretty much as a pact with the devil. Like,
I bet you if you Google right now, deal with the devil,
she'll come up.
Bet you she'll come up.
I bet.
Because that's what it's known as here, yeah.
Literally. Her hearing was covered by one of the most strict publication bans ever seen in Canadian history. Karla served 12 years in prison on 2 counts of manslaughter. She was released on July 4th, 2005, and gave an interview to CBC that day, again to the horror of all Canadians.
I watched it, and I was so disgusted and disappointed that her lawyer did most of the talking, and it was in French, and it was just like,
She speaks French now.
And it's just cowardly to me.
It is. It's not who she was. It's not who, like, okay, so you look back, her family, they were all English speaking. Now she has like a newer interview and stuff. She speaks French and only French.
I'll say that a lot of people in Ontario, more so than Northern, are bilingual for sure, but I don't know if they were.
But not further. And like now she's like, that's her main. Like that's her.
Yeah.
It's just fucking weird. Anyway. Paul was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. He remains imprisoned despite an application for parole in 2018. He was also convicted on 2 counts of first-degree murder, kidnapping, unlawful confinement, sexual assault, and offering an indignity to a dead body. So he appealed his conviction on all 9 counts, but asked for a new trial only on the 2 counts of first-degree murder. He admitted that he kidnapped the 2 victims and that he confined them in his house while he brutally sexually assaulted them. He maintained Karla alone was the killer and that he was guilty only of manslaughter. His appeal was denied. Paul told his parole hearing he wouldn't reoffend, but he remains at high risk for intimate partner violence and moderate risk for recidivism. He said he cries about his crimes.
He cries about being caught.
Yeah, he for sure does. He cries that Karla's not in jail right now.
That's right. Yeah.
He has taken 3 treatment courses in prison, including for sex offenders, but shown minimal gains, apparently. Paul is a no-contact offender. That means much of his time is in a, well, who knows now that he's moved over to the medium security prison, which that literally just happened, like before I wrote this. Therefore, at the time of writing this, I wanted to say Paul is a no-contact offender. That means much of his time is in a 2.5 by 3 meter cell. He gets 1 hour of solitary time on the range, and his yard time is spent alone. But medium security, who knows? He's obviously,
no, it's not like that anymore.
I think he's negotiating things to try and, like, I don't know.
Get medium security prison. Yeah.
Stupid.
I mean.
And maybe a chance at parole because he's helping them, blah, 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 blah.
Well, I mean, that's how it works, right? You go from maximum to medium and then low security and then you're out.
Something I think is pretty interesting is that he told the parole board he has hardly any meaningful human contact and what little he does is degrading. I'm like, are you getting raped in prison? Is that what's happening?
Maybe.
Degrading? I don't know. And then just to like mostly end this off, Paul also told the parole board before they denied him parole, quote, "Being me in prison is hard."
Aww.
That's really funny. It's funny to me. That's so funny.
What a poor, brutal serial killer, sexual sadist, rapist.
Being me in prison is hard. Okay. I hope it only gets harder.
I think if he ever did get out, I think he would go and try to kill Karla.
I think so too.
I think that's
like
why
a
he
last
wants to
hurrah. Yeah. Let him out. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
No doubt. Let him win the pool.
Just a joke.
I'm just kidding. Keep
Allegedly.
Him
a joke.
What a monster. Joke. I wish he would.
I mean, no.
Is that it?
That's it, unless you have something that you want to say. That's the disgusting and creepy story of Ken and Barbie.
I mean, it really changed the way Canadians felt about a lot of things. It did. Mm-hmm. We didn't think, even though we had Clifford Olson in BC and maybe a couple others here and there, but none were as highly publicized as Paul and Karla. So it brought that evil American plague of the serial killer home to Canada. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it sticks out. I'd
also like to say that, like, I mean, maybe somebody would argue that this isn't true, but to me, the movie Karla that I mentioned at the beginning of this chapter is so on point. They studied their mannerisms. Like Misha, who plays Paul Bernardo, like the voice and everything, like he studied him and he hit that role so well. The makeup, the style, the hair, the remaking of the home videos.
And we'd like to point out too that he hates that he did that role.
I know.
Hates that.
And I don't blame him.
Yeah.
But I will say that he did a tremendous job at like literally putting this crime on screen where I felt like, and this is probably what like the reason why he hated it is I felt like he was Paul Bernardo.
Yeah.
And I felt like she was Karla. They played it so freaking well.
Yeah.
It's like re-identifying them as something else because now you're able to like put it on the screen.
We should also say that Leslie and Kristen's family, I mean, they fought hard. So those tapes that were hidden in Paul's bathroom, they've been destroyed. They fought hard to keep that publication ban on those.
Which is good.
Yeah, but every single time like anybody wants to make a movie or anything, they're fighting against releasing it. They don't want any of their daughters' torment and torture and murders out there.
Yeah, and the way that like that movie portrays it, like, is heartbreaking.
Yeah, I believe that they were successful in some ways with that movie. It wasn't. It was pulled back or something.
I could see why.
Like, I remember when I bought it, it was right when it first came out.
Yeah.
But I don't know that it's available unless you buy it
I have the DVD, but I don't know.
Yeah, I know, because I bought it
bootleg
right
probably
away.
On like the internet.
But I don't know for sure. It could be available, but I know that they fought against it. They've been successful in having a lot of the information gagged for all these years, and
I feel like Amazon often has that stuff.
But you have to watch if it's a UK or something version, then it won't play in our DVD players or whatever.
No, but they have Ken and Babie Killers, the Lost Murder tapes.
Yeah.
Which...
That's not the same.
Yeah.
The portions of the tapes that showed the murders and the sexual assaults
they're never going to be viewed.
That's right. They're destroyed and they're narrated. Like, they're transcribed, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. So you can read them, which I have. But the movie Karla actually depicts what was transcribed.
Yeah.
So it's brutal, horrifying. Heart goes out to the families as always, and rip to the victims.
Rip to the victims.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the podcast and share it with your friends. If you don't mind giving us a 5-star rating, it'll help our show grow. Check out our TikTok where you can find interesting photos and content on some of the released episodes. You can also find us on Facebook and YouTube at True Crime Story Podcast, where the discussion can continue. And if you wish to contact us, you may do so. Our email is truecrimestorypod@gmail.com.
I'm Bree.
And I'm Char.
And we'll see you on the next chapter. Bye.